didn't want DeSantis. We didn't want Haley. We didn't want Christie. We didn't want Ramaswamy. We didn't want DeSantis. We didn't want anybody. We want him.
What does that say about the Republican Party?
It's not about what it says about the Republican Party. It's about what it says about the Democratic Party.
Why?
Because in the end, if you think about him being impeached twice, 34 felony counts or 34 felony convictions, and they still elected him president, it's not about him winning. It was an indictment against the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party was offering the American citizens. We might sit up there and talk about, hey, you should be a party for the working class, which the Democratic Party was once known for. They're not known for that right now. Why? Because their message was catering towards others and towards other issues. And they forgot about the people that brought them there, that elevated the Democratic Party to what it was over these last few decades. That's why they...
Once again, Stephen A. Smith appeared on The View. The last time he was on, they apparently forgot what had transpired. He completely crushed their naive worldview at the time and refused to regurgitate their Trump-deranged talking points. This time, however, he went totally bonkers, and the whole panel was stunned. As always, I'm really grateful when you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. In his opening remarks, Stephen A. Smith explains to the panel why the Democratic Party is a total failure. That's what I've always said. If the Democratic Party wants to keep pushing this narrative, they need to acknowledge that Donald Trump has been convicted of felonies 34 times. That gives the impression that Trump is worse rather than better. Why? Because the so-called 34-time felon defeated their candidate. Think about that for a minute. If they want to call Trump an insurrectionist, then fine. But how terrible must your platform and policies be if people would rather vote for an insurrectionist than for you? Since it was clear that the Department of Justice was being used as a weapon against Trump, the felony charges actually received a lot of attention. They were in desperate need. To hold him accountable for a minor issue, they twisted the law and utilized the courts. And what do you know? It damaged all Democrats' reputations. This is simply another desperate talking point for Democrats.
So Trump's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
They claim that Trump's win was not a mandate. Why? Because in their minds, it somehow makes their tragic loss less embarrassing. But Stephen A. Smith wouldn't take it. He gave the panel a sobering reality check by telling them that, indeed, it was a mandate. No sugarcoating. Yes, teams have lost by 30 or 40 points before, so they're trying to make the case that the Democrats' 20-point defeat wasn't a landslide. Whatever helps you sleep at night, I guess. But here's the issue. It doesn't matter how you spin it. You were shellacked. Furthermore, it's not as strong of an argument as you think to say that it wasn't as awful as people think. When states like California and Illinois almost turn red, there is a profound shift in culture. The failure of Kamala Harris to convert even one Republican county blue represents a nationwide rejection of the Democratic program. Donald Trump is more popular than ever, while Democrats struggle with approval ratings in the 20s. Despite having no control over the government, they focus on denying Trump's mandate. Simply put, Americans overwhelmingly chose a 34-time convicted felon and alleged insurrectionist over them, believing he can fix their mess. As Sunny Hostin grows upset, Stephen A. Smith reminds the panel that Biden opened the borders, allowing 12 million illegal immigrants into the country.
Brought up the message that the Democratic Party was disseminating. I'm challenging you on that. That is not what they were doing. I'm not talking about the intent.
We did it.
Well, I was here too. I was alive and breathing right here on the air talking to everybody else. The bottom line is this: you're Joe Biden. You opened borders. Now remember, Barack Obama deported more people than Trump did.
Yeah.
You know what he didn't do? He didn't stick out his chest and bloviate about it. He just did it.
Yeah.
What does Joe Biden do? Who is a Democrat? Who's the vice president under Barack Obama? He opens borders. Over 12 plus million people entered the country. But the biggest point I'm making.
He just took the key and just opened up the door?
He just took, well, that's part of it. Even the Democrats say they did.
So what? Sunny asks sarcastically, using her usual snark. Has he just opened the door? Sunny, that's exactly what he did. And if you just look at Donald Trump, you can see the difference. Trump just had to take administrative action to reduce border crossings to levels not seen in 20 years. Trump failed to pass any new border legislation during his first and second administrations. Joe Biden recently enacted executive orders and implemented procedures that intentionally made the issue worse. In the spirit of epic irony, they present the worst press secretary in history, Karine Jean-Pierre, after Stephen A. Smith. And what is the first thing she says? Actually, that wasn't necessary.
When Stephen was leaving, she said, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. I disagree with you.
Yeah, I do.
And I was curious, and so that's why I was curious.
I do, on the mandate, on Donald Trump and his administration having a mandate. And we have to be super mindful and careful of this because he does not have a mandate. And what I mean by that is if you look at the numbers, just look at the facts. He won with the smallest margin of the popular vote since the 19th century. There was no coattail, meaning that it is the House is at a razor thin, and he's on his way in the first 100 days to be the most unpopular president in their first 100 days. That is not a mandate.
I now have to assume that they arranged for Karine Jean-Pierre to show up just after Stephen A. Smith because they knew he would destroy them. They needed someone to calm the panel's female members and support their "we're perfect, we don't need to change anything" mentality. And this has to do with the insecurity and fragility of Democrats. They are always depending on their college degrees because they have to convince themselves that their useless majors and massive student loan debt were worth it. They find it hard to accept that MAGA members who lack college degrees may be smarter, or perhaps more accurate than they are. Instead of reevaluating their party's stance, which would include admitting they were wrong, they would rather stroke their fragile egos. No, we didn't lose that badly, they respond, encouraging one another. We were perfect. We did all we could. Only racism and sexism caused us to lose. However, Alyssa steps in and responds to Karine Jean-Pierre with a vicious reaction. Does it really matter whether it's a mandate or not? She inquires. The guy won. Yes.
But I guess the question is, does it matter if he has both houses of Congress and the White House?
It does matter because right now we have, what we're seeing in this administration is he's taking a wrecking ball to the government. And what that means is so that people really understand as folks are sitting here and watching, there are folks who have been fired from the federal government, and now, is our water safe, right? Is our food safe?
The skies.
Right. And the skies, right?
Yeah,
we have to worry about getting on a plane. Is that going to be safe?
Is there going to be a pandemic?
Is there going to be a pandemic? And not only that, folks who need their Social Security check, are you going to get it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is real. And they're doing it without concern of the fallout.
Right. They don't care.
And that is something that and look, I
I'm
understand.
pretty sure people didn't vote for those things.
Right, because where's the economy?
In this way, Karine Jean-Pierre reverts to the same fear tactics used by the Democratic Party in general. Oh, you could get a Medicaid reduction. You can lose your Medicare coverage. They could cut Social Security. The planes will fall out of the sky. Many pandemics will strike. You will not get your tax returns. The government will grind to a halt. They are compelled to spread false information and use intimidation since none of their accusations have any supporting evidence. The Democrats continue to lose in court as a result. They are desperate because they understand that Donald Trump's actions will eventually benefit society. The Democrats may not be able to win another election if he is successful because the people will be so captivated by the Republican Party. Their ambition for power outweighs their duty to serve the people. Their only goal is to keep Trump looking crazy and the public in fear. Even when Trump's efforts bring big changes, people will be too brainwashed to notice. The funniest part? Karine Jean-Pierre complains about everyone turning on Biden, but unknowingly admits he was so out of it that she barely saw him. Whoopi Goldberg's reaction when everyone catches the slip-up is priceless.
It was shocking what I saw. But I also, I can't speculate, right? I don't know what would have happened. And anybody who says they do, they don't really know. And so I don't want to go to rehash the past. I don't think that's a good idea, Right now, again, 5-alarm fire. We need to move with strategy, with focus, and the Democratic Party needs to actually answer those questions that I put forth. Who are we and what are we fighting?
And how do we
for?
meet the moment?
And how do we meet the moment?
Press secretary, you were also an assistant to the president, so
Yeah.
that meant you were able to interact with the campaign off time.
Actually,
Did you
I could not I had a special kind of role as a press secretary. I did not interact with it.
So you had no, as,
No, I
as
did
a
not.
commissioned
I
officer.
I
the
could
president
not.
did. So you
as
had
the press
no
secretary.
insight into the polling that showed he would have lost every
I
state?
did not
That's
because
just sales.
Well, it does matter though.
Okay, here's what's going to
Here's
happen.
little
Hold
argument
on. We're going
Trump,
to
but
take
it
we're going to
matters.
take a break.
The startling truth was just confirmed by Karine Jean-Pierre. A Wall Street Journal article claims that Biden was so overshadowed by his staff that he was unable to regularly meet with either his cabinet secretaries or press secretary. Alyssa enjoys this kind of stuff, but Whoopi, no. She responds, "We're going to a commercial break." Why? Because Stephen A. Smith had already completely wrecked their worldview. The last thing they needed was their token propagandist Karine Jean-Pierre inadvertently disclosing the truth. It's amusing. This simply shows how desperate the Democratic media is to keep up their false narrative. The fact that they misrepresented Biden's mental instability doesn't matter to them. They don't care that they devastated the economy and let 12 million illegal immigrants into the nation. They are indifferent to the constitutional disaster they have caused, which is a 5-alarm inferno. No, they just have one complaint. Trump is exemplifying what effective governance is capable of. He is proving that Democrats were not interested in helping the American people, but rather in maintaining a long-standing, corrupt state bureaucracy that embezzles money from hardworking Americans to enrich themselves and their wealthy supporters. Trump is confronting them on their dishonesty. Let's talk about the real reason why Democrats are afraid of Donald Trump. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.